All right. Today we're going to look at a concept called RFM. Now, RFM is a very common tool used in marketing. And the goal for most companies is they want to find a couple of things. One, they want to find how recent their customer has been to their store to buy items. They want to find out the frequency. How frequent does the customer come in? And then obviously they want to find out how much they spend. And so you have recency, which is just means recent, how recent. You have frequency, means frequent purchase of goods, occurrence. And then you have monetary, which is the amount they're spending. Being able to calculate this is key because if the company is more concerned with recency, it can actually use that to make uh, policies or actions that favor student, not just clients, but customers who come frequently, or in this case, who came recently, right? Here, they can also make policies for people who come in more, who buy more frequent. And so they can do coupons, they can do all that stuff for those customers. They're monetary are the high income spenders, right? So you want to find out who spends the most, and you can make a policy or action that favors those who spend most. Today, we're going to do something like that. We're going to actually create a membership that favors the big spenders. And you can also create membership that favors those who come in more frequent. And so it's just up to you as a company to decide where you're more concerned with. Now, before we begin, we're going to look at how this is done on a case of creating categories or range. And companies can do this in many forms. They can do, we're going to range from 1 to 10. 10 means the top customer, 1 means a low customer. And remember, 1 to 10 in this case could also apply to any of these areas, right? Recency, frequency, or monetary. In this case, 10 means the high spenders, 10 means the most frequent customers, 10 means those who came in recently. And this number is basically selected by the company. The people in the data analysis office and those in marketing can come together and decide on a number they want to. They can do a scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 7, 1 to 4, 1 to 10. It's totally up to them. For this simple exercise, we're going to stick with 1 to 5. So we're going to make it a scale of 1 to 5. 5 means your best customer, 1 means your least customer, right? And so if we're going to do it this way, it means that someone who has a 5 and 5 and 5 in all 3 categories is basically your top customer, right? Because they are most recent, that means they're 5. They are more frequent, which means it's 5, and they also spend the most money, which means it's 5. So your top customer, in theory, is the person who is a 5, 5, and 5. All right. So that's kind of the overview of what RFM is. So we've created a table here, and it's just a fictitious table with unreal names, right? And we decided to look at how this would work. The birth dates are obviously made up. So, but this could be any company, right? A small mom and pop store to a huge multinational corporation. Right? So you can see the names of the customers right here, the frequency of purchase as of last year, the spending for last year, the spending for this year, the days since they last shopped, the income the customers have, and also the age and also the date of birth. All right, do not overthink this, because if you overthink this, the numbers will not add up. But this is for illustration purposes. Now, obviously, this frequency of purchase covers from last year to this year, right? So um, I can change this and say to 2024. So we're looking at those who have had their purchase for the past 2 years. We're looking at spending for last year and spending for this year. And the days since the last shot. So obviously we haven't reached December of 2024, so we can change this. And it really doesn't matter if we change it or not. This is if you are very peculiar about numbers, then you can change this. But you really don't have to change it, right? We're changing it to today's date. But you don't have to do that, right? We just want to show you how the process works. And so you can use that in any given scenario. So the first thing we're going to do here is to try to set this up. So remember, we're doing it from a scale of 1 to 5, right? And so in statistics, this is called binning, right? It's called binning. So what you're doing basically is you're creating a simple process of, think of it as a frequency distribution or probability distribution, whereby you're placing data sets into 5 different parts, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so we tend to use probabilities to help us do that. And we're going to do that real quick. Now, to begin, is recency. Now, the problem we have here is, remember with monetary, right? 5 means that person is among the group that have spent the most money in the store. 4 means a little bit less, and then 1 means they spend the least. So if someone spent, let's say, 1,000, then they are going to be probably under 5, right? It's just an assumption. But if they spend $200, they'll probably be around 1. Same thing with frequency. The person who buys the most in the store, or who comes in more frequently, let's say they come in 10 times in the past 2 months, they'll probably be a 5, right? And that person who only came once in the past few months will be a 1. So you see, in both frequency and monetary, the higher number, right, gets the higher category, right, or grouping. Recency is the only one that is kind of different, because if someone came to the store 2 days ago, they would have only a 2. But someone who came to the store like 100 days ago will have 100. So it would mean that the person who came a long time ago would be a higher number, and the person who just came recently would be a lower number. Now you can see how that sounds off. That's because it's off. And we can fix that. So how to fix this is actually very easy. Because these numbers unfairly gives a higher score to Carol, for example. It gives her a higher score because she came late. So if we are to do this by way of categorizing, it would put her as a 5 because it's 187. Meanwhile, Michelle, who came to the store, right, 2 days ago, we actually get a 1 because the number is a small number. So we can fix that real easy. The way to fix that is to turn these values to negative values. When you do that, right, the lower negative now becomes the good number, right, for the business, and then the higher negative becomes not so much of a good number, right? So let's do that real quick. So what we're going to do is, and I'm going to enlarge this so you can see what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to come here, and right at this place, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do days since last, right? So days since last time they came in. But in this case, I'm going to do the reverse. So I'm going to come and say reverse. And the goal of doing the reverse is that it allows us to give more consideration to the people who came in recently, right? So I'll do equal to. And so you can see this value is last shipped. So I'm going to click on this value, and then I'm going to multiply by -1. So by doing that, right, it's going to change these values to negative. So you can see what he has done is, forgot to put a 1. What it's done is turn this into a negative value. And so I'll just drag it down to the very end. And so what it does is that it gives these values, tells them all to negative. And that will be better because then the higher negative, which tells you that it's so far away, will be a 1, and then this one would be a 5, right? So that's one of the first things you want to do to basically fix your data, right? So it's, think of it as cleaning your data basically, or getting your data ready for analysis. And that's one of the first things we do in statistics. So now that we've fixed that, right, now we can use this together with the other ones, right? We know that when it comes to frequency, we have frequency. When it comes to spending, for this example in class, we're going to use the spending one, right, for 2024, not 23. All right. So with that, right, we can begin to work on that. So the first thing we're going to do is to set up what our maximum values would be. What's the range, right? And so we're going to set that up, and we'll do for each of them. So we're going to do recency, range. We're going to create a range for frequency too. We're going to create a range for monitoring. And we might do others too, but this allows us to do that. Now, remember, we're creating a bin, right, of 5 equal parts. So since it's equal parts, right, you have in probability, right, in equal parts. And remember, you're doing percentile. So the 1, we have the lowest numbers, so from 0 to 20% or 20 percentile. 2 would be up to 40 percentile, 3 would be 60 percentile, 4 would be 80 percentile, and so on and so forth. So if you want to get some clarity, you can come here and say, okay, that would be 28 percentile, 48 percentile, 68 percentile, 88 percentile, right? Anything over 80 just becomes basically is at the top, right? So you do that. And what does that mean? Well, in layman terms, all right, so you have divided your data into 5 parts, right? And so you can basically find out what the range would be for each of them, right? So this will allow us to see how our data works. And this is kind of very helpful for us. And so remember, we're using percentile, right, to do our data. If you have never taken a statistics class and you're kind of confused how what percentile is, think of percentile as moving from the very bottom up to the top, right? So you have 20 percentile, 40, 60, 80, up to the very top, right? You are dividing data into 100 parts. That's basically what you're doing. But you're doing it into, in this example, we're doing it into 5 equal parts, right? So I hope that helps you better understand that. So yeah, so that's why we call it binning, because I put it into 5 bins, right? So you're going to see how this works, because once we can get all the way to the very end here, and you see what the value would be. So for this first one, we're going to do equal. So we're going to do percentile, right? And so it's asking us what the array is, right? So what's the data you're working with? So we're going to come here And for the first one, I want to use data since last reverse, right? We'll select this one. And it's obviously for the entire data, right? And so we're going to do that. So we're going to go ahead and select all that data. And once you do it the first time, you kind of know what the numbers are. So you probably don't need to worry about it after that. And then once we do that, we'll say, so we want it to tell us what the 20th percentile would be for the whole data, 40%, 60, 80. And then once we do that, we'll select 0.2. Now, because we don't want to, we don't want to do this on each column. We take so much time. The smart thing to do is, and maybe I would enlarge my screen so you can see. I'm going to press enter here, but I'm going to enlarge my screen so you can see what I'm doing here. So because we don't want this to be a problem for, not really a problem, but it will take you so much time doing it for each single one, right? So the smart idea is you use Command T, table, like table, if you have MacBook, but if you have a PC, you F4, and then F for this. What it does is that it freezes or holds this column while it goes down the round to 0.4, to 0.6, to 0.8. When you press enter, it tells you that at the very top, right, those who are in the store 296 days ago, the lower end of the poll, right? Well, if you scroll down here, you see someone who was here 127 days ago is at the top. But if you really want to see the lowest score, so the person who came to the store the latest time, I mean, you could do minimum and it will show you, right? Just your basic minimum here. But if we put 1 here, you can see 2, right? You can see this person was the one who came the recent to the store. You can see the values shows you that. So this is going to help you out, show you the range, because we're going to use this range in creating our RFM values. Now let's do that for frequency. Same thing. In frequency, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do percentile. And then we're going to come right down to where frequency is. We're going to highlight all the values for that. We're going to come here. And we're going to select 0.2, press enter. Same thing with F for that. So it's once you do the first time, it becomes really easy moving forward because you can see, I mean, I don't have to drag all the way to the end, but I wanted to show you so you can see what the value shows you. The person who comes in only 3 times is among the lowest, people who come around 8 among the higher ones. This can also be done for monetary, right? We can do our percentile. And based on what the company wants to work on, they can use a different right. And so now you've done that, you also do the same thing, close that. And we're going to F4 here and also F for that. Press enter. And then you can see the values here. And if I want to see how much, who spent that amount that was spent the most, I can drag it all the way. And you can see that 1,995 was the most that was spent in 2024. All right. So that kind of gives you, you've created a range basically from here. Now, once you create that, right, then we can now go in and do our RFM that we're looking for. So we can come here and say, okay, our recency, our frequency, our monetary, right? Our RFM basically. So we can do that for each one. Now, this one gets a little bit tricky because we're going to use the if statement in Excel. So we're saying that if you are at this level, we should put you as a 1. If you're at this level 2, this level 3, this level 4, anything higher than that, we want you to become a 5, right? So we're going to use our if statement. And once you do the if statement once, basically becomes easy to do the rest. So we're going to say if. So we're saying that if any value in this column is less than or equal to this number, and that covers for numbers that are further than that, right? Because that's not the smallest number. If you look right here, you can see clearly that, let me see, I thought I saw something here. Yeah. So you can see there is one number that is minus 343. So that's not the farthest that somebody has come to the store. What we're saying here is anybody who has been to this store 296 days or more, we want the system. So that's what I'm saying. If this, and we're going to say 1, right? We want them to be given the score of 1. Remember, we're doing this and categorizing the group into between 1 and 5. And you can do that if it's 1 and 4, if it's 1 and 10, it's up to you. Okay. So that's what we're doing. So the first one else, we just did that. So the next one, we're going to say if, and it's the same thing, you're putting on the same thing again. If this value is less than or equal to this, then we want them to be given as a 2. If this value here is less than or equal to this value, then we're saying that it should be designated a 3. Then we'll now do if this value is less than or equal to this number, then we're saying it should be a 4. Anything over that, we want it to be what? A 5, right? And then we now close the parentheses. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's close it. 1, 2, 3, 4. The beauty of Excel is that the colors match. So if blue will match with blue. And so we know the last one was black. That's why we're closing that. And you just want to check to make sure you're correct, and then you press enter. And so now that you press enter, this works. But here's the thing. If you drag this, right, Excel will be dragging this down, and that's not going to work for you. So the things that are going to stay, right? We want these values to stay. So you now have to decide to hold those one together. So the smart thing is to hold the recency ranges together so they stay while everything else moves. This is where your F4 really comes into play. So you F4 this value, you F4 this, you F4 this value, you F4 this. So let me explain again. It's not going to affect, this is not going to be affecting these values because you're going to drag all these values. But these ones are going to be also dragged if you don't hold those numbers together. So you're holding these numbers together while you drag. So when I press enter now, I can then come here and I can drag all these ones. See? So you see, I have dragged them and you can see that this number we're complaining about, right, is a 1, right? You can see this person is a 5 because they came in 2 days ago, right? This one is also a 5 because they came in 3 days ago, while this one is a 1 because they were 324 days ago. So that tells you that that worked. Now we can do that for frequency too. So you're going to be doing the same thing with frequency. So you're going to go to frequency. We're going to go just the one time to find out what the value is, and then we don't have to go back again because we now know what to use. All right, so we know it's B2. So we'll now say if B2 is less than or equal to 3, because we know that 3 may not be the smallest number there. Right? We're saying that it should be given as a 1. Right? If, let's put it in caps, B2 is less than or equal to 4, then we're saying that you should make it a 2. All right. All right. So now say if B2 is less than or equal to a 6, then we're saying you should make it a 3. If B2 is less than or equal to 8, then make it a 4. And if the number above 8, then make it a 5. You close the parentheses. Same thing. It's just the first time that is tricky. Once you get it done the first time and you see that it worked perfectly, you don't have to even worry about doing it again because you know very well that that would not be a problem. So you can see how this one works. Right? So you can see how that works. Now we can do that for money too. Right? Same thing. We're going to do if statement. We're going to open our parentheses, and then we're going to go find spending for 2024. We're going to come back here. And we're going to do our statements again. If that is less than equal to that, we'll say make it a 1. If we know it's a D2, is less or equal to 672, make it a 2. If D2 is less than or equal to this number, give it a 3. If D2 less than or equal to this number, make it a 4. Anything else, 85. So we close parentheses. So you can see that this becomes quite easy once you grasp it. So we've got that. All right. So you see, in a few minutes, we're able to get our FRM. We got them all correct, all done. All right. So these are the values. So you can pick each of these values and take stock of them and see who, if you're more concerned about who is your most recent customer, you want to treat them much better, then you can actually use sort and filter to kind of pick the top ones here. If you want to see who is your more frequent customer, you want to give them more kudos, you can do that. Then if you're all about the monetary, you can do that. You can also see here that if you look at the first customer, if you look at Carol is a 341. Didn't spend a lot, was frequent at the store, came a little bit, not too far time ago. So you can see it's a 341 customer. So who is your best customer? That really depends on the company. Now we can try to do an RFM, which should give us all the data together, right? And the goal is just to kind of see all the data at once. I mean, you do see it obviously, right? But when we do concatenate, it's supposed to just add all your values together. Not add it as in plus and minus, add in the sense that it kind of brings all of 3 of them together. And so you can see how it does that. Now, this can also work in such a way that it puts it into one column. And whether it does that or not doesn't change it. I think in past Excel files we've used, it would put it all into one. But this is totally fine that it did it this way, right? But it could feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again. So let's do another way and see if this is going to be better. So another way we can do that is to do concatenate. But this time around, what we're going to do is we're going to use commas. Now, the reason why I'm doing commas instead of doing the first one, is I want it to stay into one column. So when I do a comma there, it will stay into one column. And so I can go ahead and just drag this. So you can see it tells me that that first customer is a 341. This is a 353. This is a 525 customer. This is a 541 customer. This is a 433 customer. So you get that information about your customers, right? So it can be useful in so many ways. It really depends on what you are trying to do, right? If you want to see this work, we can do that, right? We can select these values, and we can go into sort and filter, and we can say, hey, we want to sort it from the highest to the lowest, right? And so it says expand your selections, say sure, and you can see it sorts it. So it tells you that your best customer is your 544 customer. So if you go here, you can see Christine Anderson, EDS, which is who I think that's doctor, right? A dentist. You can see that's your top customer. You can see, and then you have a 543, 541, 541. So these are your top customers. Now, but you can also take them, and you can also. So I'm going to put it back to it. You can also take them one at a time. You can say, I'm more concerned about my customers who are coming more recent, right? So the essence is I'm more about my more recent customers, not my frequent customers, not my monetary customers. If that's the case, you just go to sort of filter and you filter that, right? So you're going to filter based on those who came in recently, right? And you can do this for anyone. You can do for more frequent, you can do for those who spend the most. So that's kind of one thing you can do with your data. I hope this helps you. I'm going to do a couple of things should you want to check out a couple of things that you may want. So, for example, if you want to also decide to do a membership, for example, let's assume that you decide to do your membership, but your membership is based on the contributions or the spending. So based on spending, you can do it based on income or based on spending. So let's say you now say, okay, based on the spending for this year, I want to create a membership tier. So I'm going to do a membership here, right? And this membership is going to favor those who spend more in my store, right? And so you can create spending, and then you can create membership. And then your company can decide based on this. You've seen that the person who spent the most in your store spent $1,995, right? So you can say based on that, I'm going to do membership. So let's assume the range is from, I know this is not the lowest number for 70. We can go and find the lowest number for your monetary, right? We can come here, right? And we can find it, right? We can click on here and we can go to sort of filter. And we can see the lowest I was spending your store was 126, right? Okay, so let's go back. All right, so 126 was the lowest I was spending in your store, while 1,995 was the highest I spent in your store. So you can say, okay, I'm going to use that as criteria. So anyone who spends, let's say, between, let's say 0, nothing, right, to 999 would be a bronze customer. So I'm going to put the minimum value here at 0, and I'm going to put bronze. So what that means is that anybody who spends 0 is a bronze or above. Above what? Well, that's what you decide. Now, anybody who spends up to once you click on it, you hit 1,000, you become silver customer, right? And then there's some benefits for that. The silver customer gets some benefits, maybe VIP or something, right? And anyone who spends above of from 1,500, right? Anyone who spends from 1,500 now becomes a gold customer, right? So this is purely a creation that you have made for your own company, right? And you can decide how that works for you. But that's an example of making a plan for increased sales to encourage customers. Maybe you have a big thing, like you know how companies like Costco will say that you get an advantage if you have this card and all that stuff, right? The white card, the black card, those cards that Costco offers also have some kind of advantage to members. So let's say that you have this policy based on this year's spending. You're like, okay, this is who I'm going to consider my top customers, right? All right. So let's see how that will work. Let's see which of these customers qualify for any of this. So to do that, we use a very simple system, Vlookup. So it allows us to kind of use this effectively. So to do that, first, we have to tell the system which data set we're trying to do that with. And so we're going to select, okay, we didn't, I don't know if we fixed this. Did we fix this? I'm sure we did, right? Okay, so I'm going to select D2, which is spending. All right. And once I do that, right, then the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this. So I want the system to know that based on this, my scenario, I want this system, this. You can see how VLOOKUP tells you, right? It tells you the lookup value, which is D2, tells you you should select the table array, which we did. It's asking for the column and index. In this case, we will use 2. Then it's asking us if we want it to be an approximate match or exact match. Well, we want it to be approximate, right? Because we leave room for any errors that may exist. So once we do that, right, then we have to remember that we want this to stay the way it is. And so we have to F for this, F for that, this one. So what it does, it keeps these values together. So you see, just by doing that, right, it just told you, right, that this is a bronze customer. And that makes sense because look at monetary, they are 1. If someone is 1, they're most likely going to be a bronze customer. So this will be a bronze. This next person will definitely be a gold customer. And the next one will be bronze, right? Without even doing anything, we kind of know some of that. So let's drag to the end and we'll see. All right. So you can see this was a bronze customer. This is a silver customer. So that means that even though they are a 5, they probably spent slightly lower than 1,000, right? This is a bronze customer. This is bronze, this is bronze, this is a gold customer, right? So because we made the criteria really tough, you have to spend at least 1,000, right? And so here you can see the customers. Now, you can decide that you want to pick only the gold customers for anything, all right? And that's where the sort of filter comes in. It allows you to filter out. I can filter the gold customers from other customers if I want to do that, right? And then I'll do that. So see, I can decide to do that. I can decide to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to take out every other customer. And I'm going to only concentrate on the gold customers only, right? So here are my gold customers. Here's my top customers. And I'm sure you can see these are the ones that are your key customers. And you can see that the last column for here, the last digit was all 5s, which made sense, right? Because they have to be that. So you can now say, okay, these are the customers that I'm going to spend A, B, C, D on because they're my gold customers, right? And this allows this is really cool because it allows the company to make so many policies or actions that may favor that group. You can also try to see the difference. So if I want to see the difference in spending, I want to see the difference in spending between last year and this year, right? I want to see how different the spending is. That's very basic. I can just go here and I can click 2024 minus C of that number, right? So I'm just going to come here and let's do minus C1, C2, sorry. And that will show the difference in. So I'm looking at the customers. Now, remember, this is not apples and oranges, but I'm just going to show you what you can do. So I want to see if their spending for this year is more than last year, right? You can use that effectively. Now, obviously, if you're asked to do a percent, you can also do that, right? You can subtract the new one from the old one, but the old one times 100%. This one would definitely be a negative one, right? You can divide this by, so you can see it's the new amount minus old. So 224 minus 223. I can divide it by this number if I want to, right? Or I can find a percent of that. But you can see how this can come very handy. You can see in this case, obviously they spent way more last year than this year. That's a difference, right? And you can also do a percent. Let's say you want to do a percent, right? That's pretty basic, right? You divide this by previous year. So we can do that. This is the difference between the two of them. And we subtract it from last year, obviously, divided by last year. Right? And then you press enter. So you can see the difference. And you drag this down. And since it's a percent, right? You just go here and you select your percent. And so you can see an increase or decrease in percentage for all of that, right? So that is something that you may want to try if you want to do that. But that's just going to show you the difference. And some of these differences are huge. So that's an example of using those concepts, right? Subtracting this, divided it by last year, multiplying it by 100%, basically. That. All right. Hope this video was helpful, and will give you more idea of how we could use this in marketing. Thank you.